So let's get started with this face rig troubleshooting process. I'm going to start by turning on the joints on this rig. So I'll go down to the main controller and turn on joint visibility so we can see all the joints that the face build process created. Another thing I'm immediately going to do with this rig is turn on limits. You see, this character has a really big face, and the limitations that these UI controls provide with the surrounding box are never going to be enough to get the kind of expressions I need for a successful animation. If I were to take her smile right now, this is simply not enough. It's never going to be enough, right? And I would rather have the ability to max out, because in animation you almost always want to exaggerate. Actually, you always do, especially with stylized animation. Even with realistic animation, you want to push beyond the limits. So to do that, I'm going to select the control box, and in here there is a limit parameter that I'm going to turn off. So I slid to turn it off, and now if I am to grab these two smile controls, I should be able to move it all the way. And this, being able to go this far, is what I'm going to need, especially to repair this smile. All right, things are going to look a little wonky in the control box, but it's okay. As long as you can always reset your parameters by setting them to 0 or hitting go to build pose, you should be fine. Before we continue, another thing I also want to talk about, which I missed out on, is the pupil control. I'm going to try to turn on color for this. It's been misbehaving recently, but if I go to 6 and reload all textures, yeah, my viewport textures seem to be misbehaving a lot, but it's fine. I just needed to show you the eyes. So one of the things I was worried about was selecting all those edge loops, if you remember. So I'm going to show you how it's operating. If I select the control box and I turn on the eye controls, should have the iris and pupil controls. I think this one is, let me turn off my joints geometry selection, and if I select this, this should be the pupil, and I should be able to scale it, and it's working. So selecting all those edge loops was okay. It is not going to have a problem, and iris was fine because that was just one edge loop on the outskirts. One of the first things I want to do before we jump into this thing is rename my original cluster. You see, when Advanced Skeleton did this multi-cluster thing for the face rigging, it gave me some really good naming conventions for the skin cluster. Usually we just leave it like this. Well, you really shouldn't leave it the default name. I'm just going to call it main SC. I'm just going to follow the naming convention that Advanced Skeleton is using. So I'm going to go main SC. So that just stands for main skin cluster. And now if I select it and go into my weight paint tool, it should be renamed main skin cluster. Another thing concerning the skinning that I want to talk about is the large number of joints that Advanced Skeleton creates for the eyelids and around the eye and the lips. Thankfully, it does a really good job with the skinning of these. If I was to select this and go into my weight paint tool, and I was to select the eyelid, for instance, it has done a really good job for the most part of weighting them. Let me go find, go show, tear this off, and turn off selection highlighting. These are really good weightings, and it's good that that's the case, because as you can tell, going in there to adjust the weighting of each and every one of these would be a pain. Now, there are some errors in the corner of the mouth, which I am going to fix, but it's great that we don't really have to go in there and fix these, because the eyes are working really well. If I select the eye controls, there's some really good things happening with the squint and other attributes. With these squint controls, they're working really well. All the weighting for this stuff is done really well. When I jump into cleaning these weights, you're going to see me do a minimal amount of work on these. And I hope that yours turned out good enough too, that you don't have to mess around with them, because you can see that's a lot of joints. Same with the lips. The lips turned out really well. I think it turns out well because there are a lot of joints and it's able to allocate really small portions. But it's very organic when you're moving all the lip controls and stuff. It feels very well done, and you're going to get some really nice mouth shapes with this. The real culprit of all the issues on this face is going to be on this skin cluster, the kjSC skin cluster. It has almost all the problems. You're going to see some weird faceting as I step through. So that's what we're going to be focusing our attention on dealing with. All the weird things that are happening when you try to raise her cheek are happening because of these faceted weighting results. It's all over the nose, and it's also on the smile bulge weighting and the frown weighting. So that's where you're going to see me come to. And because it's going to be the most tedious, I'm going to save it for last. But before we get started with this weight painting, let me resolve some of these obscured controls. So the first one I want to deal with is this control box. The control box is a fairly easy thing to move. I know in the previous lesson I said I was going to modify the ear controls, but I think I'm going to leave them alone. I'm just going to select the control box and move it just a little bit out of the way. This is about a good distance. I don't mind it being over there. And I can always zero it out because it's just a simple translation out there. But you can move the control box and you should be fine. And hitting go to build pose won't impact that. Now the next thing I'm going to do is, I do have an IK neck, if you remember. So this is the control for the IK neck, the IKFK control switcher. So I'm going to take that, go to control vertices, and I'm going to move it to the other side just so it doesn't get in the way of the control box. So now the neck, I'll be altering it from this side. And the other thing I'm going to deal with is this jaw control. These are fairly easy fixes, and I just want to get them out of the way. So I'm going to isolate it, and you can see most of it is in her face. So I'm going to move it out in component mode. So that's a good location. And the next thing I want to deal with is the tongue. So I'm going to select the tongue controls and the tongue geometry and isolate them. And this is a little sloppy. So I'm going to go into component mode, hit F8, and just start adjusting these. Make sure I don't get the UI, because the UI seems to be accessible to when I went into component mode, because they're pretty much just a shape node connected to each other, two different shapes connected as one control. So that's why it activated component mode there too. Come over here. Yeah, I don't want that. So I want to make sure I deselect that and continue adjusting these tongue controls. Do the same thing here. Make sure nothing is selected there. And that's it. So the tongue control should be a little bit more intuitive now. So that's it for controls that are being obscured by the geometry. And now we can get started with the weight painting fixes.